capitalism.
No. Well, maybe.
Les Mexicains sont trop strong. On ne peut pas les dompter. Ils vont s'américaniser parce qu'ils peuvent. Après, ils vont mexicaniser les Américains.
When the postmodern movement is adopted for everything, then the counterculture becomes over the counterculture. So-called radical ideas are everywhere, making them not so radical anymore. From squares to circles, from structures to processes. Let us deviate our mind away from structures onto processes. This allows us to analyze in a more empathetic framework. ¿Qué onda, loquitos? I have an honest question.
Can you forgive and forget? Is it possible? Do you need to forgive in order to forget? And do you need to forget in order to forgive?
You gotta sink to swim. Art is hard. It can be good, great, amazing, gross, therapeutic like this machine that examines our constant damage control in life. From Jodorowsky's interview in Forced Exposition, he says, I ask of film what most North Americans ask of psychedelic drugs. The difference being that when one creates a psychedelic film, he needs not create a film that shows the visions of a person who has taken the pill, rather he needs to manufacture the pill. The last film included in the Mexican cinema of darkness may be the most important in the conversation. We are talking about a movie that signifies the oppression of cultural and of the motherly love, and how we are the hands of the past pain. Motherly love in the shape of an elephant.
Now, I did not know in the exact structural form, but I suppose in my subconscious layer, I knew what these colors meant somewhere inside of there. The Mexican flag's colors and symbols each stand for something. Red stands for the blood of the revolution and the heroes that fought for it. The green represents the hope and the struggle for independence. The white represents the purity of the nation. In the same breath, we can say that the green represents independence from Spain. The white represents the Catholic religion. The red represents the union between the indigenous people and Spaniards.
Santa Sangre is a psychoanalytical discussion. The movie based on the serial killer Goyo Cardenas, who murdered women and buried them in his front yard. Somewhat of a media star and considered one of the first serial killers in the spotlight of Mexico. But the serial killer element may be secondary. Of course, at base value, this movie is on the description of American colonization. The battle within the self, of oppressed versus oppressor, or male versus female, skeptical of both sides. Wishing the mother back while transforming into the father by force and floating through the asylum's walls. This is why the question of forgiveness is central to the movie's premise. Can you move forward? Can forgiveness work, or must there be retribution to eliminate the pain? Since we'll have a deep dive into meaning and myth, a quick character discussion is necessary. Well, the protagonist is Phoenix, who is the embodiment of a phoenix reborn or the eagle of the Mexican flag, the symbol that the Aztecs described for Tenochtitlan. Phoenix is in limbo between Mexico and America. The ghost trapped as an orphan, the forgotten culture, the arms of the motherland, the lineage of cruelty. Then, Orgo, who is the parody of Uncle Sam or a symbol for America, the sadistic nation, as described through the young Phoenix's eyes when he sees his mom seduced by him. A sort of stepfather, you could say. I see him as the red of the Mexican flag. Concha is Phoenix's mother, who is seen as the leader of the Church of Santa Sangre, translated over to Holy Blood. She is the embodiment of the mother country, the representation of hope or independence. I see Concha as the green on the Mexican flag. Alma is the daughter of the tattooed woman. She is a mime who represents the innocence of childhood as well as the silent spirit. I see her as the white of the Mexican flag, the tradition. Now the movie begins with our main character Phoenix in an insane asylum, perched atop a tree. He has a flashback to when he was younger, where we are introduced to the different colors of his life. This is where we meet Aladdin and Orgo. Aladdin is Phoenix's greatest friend, and Orgo is the ringleader. We are also introduced to the tattooed woman. The tattooed woman has a mute daughter whose name is Alma, or Spirit. Alma is a mime. The tattooed lady then screams to Alma to walk through the rope on fire. Once Orgo enters the circus tent, the tattooed lady seduces him, and to display his male force, Orgo practices his knife throwing skills, to emulate sexual intercourse, of course. Phoenix sees all these things and realizes the ugliness of the Circo de Gringo. He goes on to kiss Alma's hand, and you see some young love begin to exist between the two of them. In the next scene, we really get introduced to Jodorowsky's directing style. During the behind the scenes, he discusses how he shoots scenes and remains malleable, to the point of changing the script and story to match with reality. When he was recording in Mexico, he recorded the real red light district, as well as some actual scenes of the poor. And while he was looking for an old soul song in Mexico, he came across a chorus group of blind individuals. Those who were there, he asked if they would join the movie, and they are the members of the Church of Holy Blood, with Concha as their leader. As we spoke of before, Concha is Phoenix's mother. Then a protest breaks out with the church members and the police over the demolishment of the church. A bishop or pope-like figure with his maroon robe appears to discuss the destruction of the church with Concha, as Concha describes how they came to worship the saint. A saint that has not been declared a saint by the Pope. The Pope is disgusted by the universalist perspective on Catholicism. The concept of liberation theology is also referenced in The Crime of Padre Amaro, since it was best known inside of Catholicism in Latin America in the 60s. The liberation theology that Concha and the members of Santa Sangre comes with the idea that their main saint is a woman who was tortured and killed by two men. The theology is defined by freeing the oppressed. The theoretical model can also be seen as humanitarianism or Marxist in nature, such as the group of 80 Christians for Socialism. This model also lends its way to a more matriarchic society. Concha then comes back to the circus to find Orgo flirting with the tattooed woman. She gets angry and Orgo takes her away. Jodorowsky indicated in interviews that the relationship between Orgo and Concha was similar to his parents, Orgo being his abusive father, and the mother who hates her son. Phoenix then sees his mother having sex with his father, which then leads to an elephant bleeding out, and Phoenix cries out for the dying elephant. Noted as one of the only animals that have matriarchs set up, the elephant has symbolized the death of femininity, or the death of the woman. Once the elephant dies, he is tossed into a landfill site and people show up to eat it. This is said to be another scene that was real. The son then becomes a father, by being tattooed an eagle. Concha catches the tattooed woman having sex with Orgo, and becomes extremely jealous, and spills acid on both of them while they are having sex. Concha then gets her arm sliced off by the knife-throwing Orgo. Orgo dies in front of Alma and Phoenix is trapped in the trailer while the tattooed woman and Alma leave. We move forward to where Phoenix is in the asylum, and the asylees have a night out in the red light district. We are in the perspective of Phoenix, so we see through his lens, similarly to the movie Voices with Ryan Reynolds.
Pretty complicated inside the human mind, huh?
It was you that killed me, Jerry. You.
Okay, that's true, but in a certain sense, it wasn't me.
Then, he sees his armless mother outside. He escapes and becomes the extension of his mother, having plays to where he acts like her arms. His body is an extension of hers. Considered the invisible man, he is the masochist finding pleasure in patience, or in the suspension of waiting. Phoenix kills women but is doing it as his mother's arms. First, Phoenix kills a woman who is interested in him. The mother speaks into Phoenix's ears and tells him to kill her. He then goes into a store and sees Santa, a sort of anti-version of El Santo, and a snake comes out to epitomize his erection. Once he takes Santa home, he shows her his play, only to try to kill her because the mother keeps chanting for him to do it. Alma then comes back into his life and rescues him from his mother, or rather himself. Alma being the silent spirit who is willing to accept death at the hand of her true love, and because of such, Phoenix cannot find himself to kill her. we get a beautiful rendition of a plastic mother, very similar to the scene in Dead Silence.
Person to get along with in the past, but I've changed. Jamie!
Where we realize that the father was just a makeshift puppet. The mother doll is the shell of a culture that once existed for Phoenix. Once Phoenix is finally free, he becomes arrested by the police. His first free act is his last. As Marcuse noted, liberation is therefore followed by a better domination. From domination to the father, church to society. While El Topo shows social liberation is for the illumined personality, Santa Sangre shows the redemption of the soul is tied to social liberation to the masses.
If you ever want to know how to not waste time, just travel. Traveling is never a waste of time. So if you have absolutely nothing going on, just travel someplace. If you have no great distance to travel, just take a walk down the street to the corner store and find an adventure, because that's where life happens. It's when you're just moving about in this space and you're forced to interact with other things moving in the same space. And that's never a waste of time.
The rain had started tapping on the window near my bed.
Waking up from the nightmare of history. In the book, Mexican Cinema of Darkness, Doyle Green writes in the conclusion that these films and their respective degenerate utopias do not suggest a way out of the nightmare of history. If anything, history can only be a reoccurring nightmare. We are not where we used to be. YouTube is not the same place it used to be. From utopia to dystopia, from access to control, from freedom to communism, from redemption to repression, these are the repeating perspectives derived into something like Brave New World or 1984. The sort of lost futures that are spoken of by Mark Fisher or Slavoj Žižek. But let's not drown in this nihilism. Life is a process, not a structure. Don't let yourself be skewed by ideology. If you open your mind into inconsistencies, it allows you to understand and have a more empathetic framework. And if you really believe in your ideas, you should be able to hold your ground at them. The red pill versus blue pill society really only feeds a pharmaceutically addicted one that can somehow think they know more than others. I dream and make believe. There is no explicit culture, only an implicit one. There is nothing transcendent in culture. There is no other. And when the secrets are finally said, we can push past these self-fulfilling prophecies. You are not a ghost. Don't fade away. There is no reason for your suffering that I can give. But your wants should not be pushed to the wayside. Do not want less. It's not Chicanos versus Mexicanos, just a reoccurring dream of the earth. Forgive and forget. The latter's probably more important than the former. So I started forgetting things. One can say capitalism is the system of death and nihilism is the worldview of death. But do not become less of you to have more of it. Quit chasing a ghost. That's just the mirage of happiness and fulfillment. Do not deny your life and go live it. Then once you have, come back home and become living again.
"私は乗り越